Talk about low budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, today I'm finally going to be talking about Dragon Ball. Because I recently just reread Dragon Ball, probably for the fifth time or something. When I say Dragon Ball, I don't just mean classic Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, which is what you probably think, but I mean the classic all the way through Boo, because remember, in Japan, there is no Z outside of the end. In the manga, it's just Dragon Ball all the way through. That's how I read it anyway, because if you want to read Dragon Ball, you should read these three packs they did. They collect it as just one series like it's supposed to be. But, I started with the Ten Shinhan saga instead of just reading, Pilaf, Red Ribbon Army, because I wanted to skip some of that early stuff. But reading this again, I just really thought, wow, this story is just really, really engaging. For every single arc, even the ones I didn't like as much as the others, I was constantly on the edge of my seat, waiting to see what would happen next, even though I knew it would happen next. So I thought, hey, why not make a video on it? I don't think I really ever see people talk about this, so without further ado, let's do it to it. So, the villains of Dragon Ball are probably arguably the most iconic part of it, and they're really what make it what it is. I mean, Dragon Ball started to Z is obviously the most popular part of it, but the first Z-esque story was the King Piccolo saga, and you could argue even before that it kind of started with Ten Shinhan. Well, Ten Shinhan's not a villain, he's the antagonist of that story, the obstacle that Goku has to defeat, so, he may as well just be lumped in with the villains. Starting off with that story, just really wowed with it. I already remembered it being really good, but just reading it again, it's really, really good. I mean, it's really funny, the artwork is amazing, but also Tenshinhan is just a really good character for this kind of thing. Because he's portrayed as actually being pretty tough and serious, but he's not evil like his master, or he's kind of mean, but Chaozu's the really mean one. And it's just really cathartic to see Goku finally fight him and you think he's about to win. Of course, until he gets hit by a truck and he, falls out of the arena before Tenshinhan does. And this story, well, technically, it doesn't revolve around a big villain like the next few stories arcs do, but it feels more like it fits in with those because the stakes, even though they're technically not really that big, they feel bigger. And you get moments like Roshi telling Tenshinhan about how he dressed up as Jackie Chan to teach Goku and Krillin a lesson about not getting lazy, always being ready for the next challenge. When you get a more serious moment like that almost, it really feeds into the idea that this story is getting bigger and it's evolving. And it really does with the King Piccolo saga. Dragon Ball's first saga to revolve around, we gotta defeat this villain before he destroys the world and kills everybody. Or conquers it, rather. And this is a really good story. I mean, everything from especially Goku and Piccolo's final battle, Piccolo being portrayed as this ancient threat from Roshi's past, it's all done really well. But I do have one problem with it. In the when Goku meets Master Karin, he tells him to if he drinks this holy water, it'll make him super strong. Turns out it's just regular water. The real training was trying to get the water. That was a good lesson. But in this, he says there's this super, super water that if you drink it, you'll gain incredible power. Sure, you'll probably die if you drink it, but you might not, and since Goku is the main character, he can't die. Sort of. So he, of course, survives, and you can say that, well, it was showing how tough Goku is, but no, it's a pretty lazy story choice. But actually, here's something interesting. On the cover, I guess you would call it, for the chapter, there's a note from Akira Toriyama that said, I was kind of sick while I was doing these last few chapters, so this one specifically is not going to be as strong as some of the others, but I hope you still enjoy it. Yeah, even he admitted that that plot line was kinda dumb. But it doesn't really stop Piccolo from still being this super powerful, menacing threat, and Goku fighting him being super cathartic and compelling. I mean, it's a long fight too, it lasts a fair bit of time. And seeing Goku finally defeat him by punching a hole through his chest is just really satisfying. And then of course in the next tournament, he gets to fight the regular Piccolo we all know, and finally wins a tournament for once. And this is probably one of the best fights in all of Dragon Ball. No joke. Sorry for that, guys. I had a little trouble. Something happened, but anyway, yeah, the Goku versus Piccolo fight at the end of the 23rd tournament is just really, really great. It goes on for a long time, and even though I'd read it two or three times before, it just really surprised me with the amount of twists and turns it got thrown around in that fight. For example, I remember that Piccolo grew into a giant, but I didn't remember that he could grow even larger. I don't remember Goku doing a Kamehameha with his feet. This story is just completely crazy. And Piccolo, this version of Piccolo is even more menacing than the first one because, well, I guess he is after world domination. Before it was he wanted world domination and then Goku got in his way. Here it's he must destroy Son Goku and avenge his father. And considering how he's way more powerful and Goku already knows he's here, he just gives this whole arc a sense of ominous. Not ominous. It gives Piccolo an ominous presence, this sense of dread throughout the arc, because we know it's going to end with Goku and Piccolo finally facing off. And then of course there's, Z. And yeah, I'm not really going to talk about the Saiyans because yeah, the Saiyans are great and all, but I mean, the key one there is Vegeta, and Vegeta does work great as a villain, but he becomes good later on, so I'm not really going to talk about him here. But of course there's Frieza, who has an argument to be the greatest villain of all time, which I definitely wouldn't say he is, but if you told me, I would understand that. I mean, especially if you read his lines with his voice from Kai. Rest in peace, Chris Ayers. You really feel the menace from this guy. Because at first when you see him, he calls everybody Mister and stuff like that. Says Mr. Dodoria. And he's menacing and he's these cold undertones, even though he never really screams or anything, which makes it when he actually does get mad, all the characters get pretty scared at seeing this guy get mad. Because usually he doesn't even need to get mad. They're all just scared of him anyway. Even Vegeta, this guy who was seemingly so powerful before, who it seemed like just could not die no matter what, is still terrified of Frieza. All of his men who are really powerful are terrified of him. And even after our heroes finally stand up to fight him, they still are completely outmatched by this monster. I mean, you see what he does to Vegeta toward the end where he just beats him up and kills him? It's really definitely interesting thing to read and watch too. Really. And I also just like little scenes he gets. Like multiple times he says, "I won't fight with either," or he says, "I won't fight with either of my hands" when he's fighting Goku. Or when he confronts Nail, he says, "I'll only use my left hand. Won't that make things more interesting?" And you really get the sense of, can anything stop this guy? And as he just transforms multiple times, he really seems unstoppable until Goku, who, even with all his new power, still can't beat him, once he finally becomes a Super Saiyan, and he's finally able to defeat Frieza, who, I really like this one scene toward the end, which it's kind of copied with Moro, but I feel like it was more, the idea still applies there, which is, he tells Frieza that, if you really want to settle this, why don't you go learn a few moves, then come fight me again, and he says, learn a few new moves? Same thing he says to Moro. He says that if you really want to be so powerful, why don't you just train? And Moro says, you want me to train? It's the villains of Dragon Ball. They all want to be more powerful, or obsessed with the idea that they're the most powerful. And even if they're not, they still don't want to train because them training is for the weak. That proves that you have something wrong with you. That's why all these villains, they transform or absorb people. Because to them, that makes them more powerful, taking from others instead of just actually doing something themselves. Which is why when Frieza actually does train, he becomes unimaginably powerful. Also, people in the comments, please not spoil the Black Frieza saga. I'm reading the manga as it comes out in volumes, so I haven't seen that yet. But then there's Cell, who is... I understand if someone would say Cell is better than Frieza, but I just couldn't agree. But he works too because, well, Frieza's motivation was he rules most of the universe, many planets. And as soon as he sees someone step out of line, he can't stand it. Or as he says, I must destroy all Saiyan blood. That's really what he wants, just to destroy all the Saiyans and prove that no one can stop his rule. But Cell, well, he just lays it out for us pretty definitively. He tells Trunks, maybe I just want to see all your faces twist with fear. That's all he wants. He just wants to cause destruction and run around. He doesn't really have any deep motivations, but he's still really scary. I always remember this one exchange he has with Goku, where he tells him that, where Goku asks him what is he gonna do once if he wins, and he says he'll just destroy the Earth, then go around attacking other planets. As he says that even his original goal of destroying you, Son Goku, seems all but trivial now. I mean, he thinks himself so high and mighty that his original purpose is completely pointless to him, really. And much like Frieza, even when it seems that he's finally been defeated, he just can't be because he's such a beast. Because he survives by the slimmest of margins with his core, but it still makes complete sense, doesn't feel out of nowhere. Especially, you really get probably one of his most menacing lines, in my opinion, is when he reveals himself to be alive and he says, I came back in my perfect form, must have been my Saiyan cells, they gave me a boost. And I even picked up Son Goku's instant transmission as a bonus. Son Goku didn't defeat me at all, he just made me better. Which of course makes all the more satisfying when he finally gets defeated, blah blah blah. Yeah, Cell's a pretty perfect villain. Boo is also a great villain. I really like the Boo saga. I don't agree with people that say it's bad. I think that mostly just comes from people growing up watching the anime and having to sit through all that filler, which is why you should watch Kai, even though it still has some filler. Um, Which, yeah, by the way, if you do want to watch Kai, I know this is a tangent, but you might think, well, on Hulu, some of the episodes are the censored versions for some reason, but I'll link it in the description. You can watch all of Kai with the original music completely uncut on the Wayback Machine. You should do it. But yeah, Boo is a great villain. Think just one, when he's the fat Boo. When Hercule asks him, why do you kill all these people and cause destruction? He says, they said that's how you play, Bibbidi and Bobbidi. Who are they? Mean wizards who made Boo. Because that's all he really knows how to do. He was just told that's how you have fun. Go attacking people. So that's what he does. And then once he becomes Super Boo, his goal is, well, quite simple. Much like Cell, he just lays it out for us. He just says that he wants to fight strong guys. And the whole reason he doesn't even just kill all these fighters immediately is because, as he says, what's the point of being the most powerful if you have no one to fight? Which does make me wonder, though, if he did succeed in killing everyone who's powerful, there would be no one left for him to fight, but whatever. I also like Kid Buu at the end because he's definitely evil, but he's not evil the way Frieza and Cell are, where they're actively doing all these horrible things. Kid Buu, the original version of Majin Buu, is supposed to be the embodiment of evil. He is just pure chaos. He doesn't even talk. He just says, hey, and attacks people. That's it. But that's pretty menacing. And yeah, the spirit bomb that destroys him at the end is really cool. Then there are the heroes, the main characters. I'm not just going to talk about the Saiyans, but I gotta talk about them first. Goku is a great character, we all know that. But I like how he's a flat character, which has been discussed before, as in, he doesn't need to grow or anything really, because he makes other people grow. He grows a bit, sure, but never in any huge substantial ways. And, well, he is a hero. He doesn't fight because it's the right thing to do. He fights bad guys because they're attacking his friends, and because he loves fighting. It's in his blood. I mean, in the Saiyan saga, even when he rejects being a Saiyan, he still admits that, yeah, he definitely is one because of his love for the thrill of the fight. And the Frieza saga is about him embracing that he is a Saiyan, and nothing will ever change that, but he was still raised on Earth. So as he says, I'm a Saiyan who came all the way from Earth for the sole purpose of beating you. And I like that he defeats Buu at the end. I know some people say Gohan should have been the main character, but I don't think Gohan could have worked as a main character. I think Toriyama was right, and yeah. Wouldn't it be kind of lame if the finale of this series changed the main character at the last second? And technically, everyone works together to beat Buu. If not for everyone across the Earth and many parts of the universe giving all their energy, The Spirit Bomb would not have defeated Boo. But then there's Gohan himself. I like Gohan. He's good, I guess. I don't really have that much to say about him. I know he's really annoying in the beginning, but that's the point, and it's just cool to see him grow because, I mean, for Goku, he already was a brave guy that loved to fight. Gohan was not that, which is the point. So when he finally achieves Super Saiyan 2 and defeats Cell, you get to see him as this ultimate warrior. Also cool to see other moments like when he fight during the big Frieza fight where he says, "I said move. I said move." And then he's able to beat Frieza pretty badly even though it really doesn't do that much. It shows that this kid is not to be messed with. Or during Goku's fight with Cell, everyone is so impressed by this amazing power. And Gohan says, that's it? That can't be Dad's full power. And he thinks it's not because that really isn't anything that he couldn't have handled. That's how powerful he is. And I like how he's done it handled in the Buu saga. I mean, some people can say him not really getting a training arc and just getting the whole power up thing is kind of a cop out, but it was entertaining. And again, that story wasn't really about Gohan, so it's not really a fair judgment. And then there's Vegeta. Yeah, who doesn't love Vegeta? His arc of growth is just really good. He may have the best villain redemption story. Because it's done in such a great way, where at first he's pure evil, wants to kill everybody. Then he reluctantly works with Gohan and Krillin because he knows that the Ginyu Force and then later Frieza are way stronger than him. But then when Frieza kills him, his last words, he's begging Goku, even though he hates him so much, that Frieza must die by a Saiyan's hand. You must defeat him. And then he dies and Goku buries him. And he says that I may have hated you, but I always respected your pride. And now I want you to share some of that pride with me. That really works. I honestly have to say that Vegeta's death on Namek is the best death scene in all of Dragon Ball. And then also, of course, there's his great story in the Cell Saga, such as his final moment especially, which, look, I'm really glad Dragon Ball continued, but Cell Saga would have been a good conclusion. I mean, well, I'm glad Vegeta's arc got the epic conclusion it did. If it had ended in the Cell Saga, it would have been really good. He learned humility. When his son died, he finally showed that he did care about him, and was willing to attack Cell and even apologize to Gohan. And then he says, I have been humiliated by that father and son duo. I shall never fight again. Which of course he does end up fighting. Gets his whole super cool Majin Vegeta storyline. Gets his epic sacrifice, comes back and fuses with Goku and becomes Vegito, you know the whole thing. I just like the little moment of course he had to come back to life, but how he's revived when the wish on the Dragon Balls is to revive all the good people of Earth, all the good people who were killed by Buu. And Goku says, "Hey, your halo disappeared. Shenlong must think you're a good guy." But I also want to talk about the human characters because they're really good too. Ten Shinhan is really good. I like Ten Shinhan. I mean, who doesn't love his when he's able to hold off Cell? Which this scene really makes me wonder. If he went all out, he probably could have killed the androids. Because it shows how when Cell says, "You've got to be joking. You think you can beat me?" And then he's able to hold him off for a fair amount of time. And he says, "How could I have been beaten by Ten Shinhan?" And also, nobody ever talks about Goku and Ten Shinhan's rematch in the 23rd tournament. That was really cool. It showed how tough he is. And I may not have loved the Moro saga in Super, but I thought it was pretty good. And I like the part where all the humans fight all the escaped prisoners. That was cool. It showed these guys are still tough. And I like that he made it into the Tournament of Power. And there's Krillin. Who doesn't love Krillin? He just has an entertaining character. You get to see him. He never, much like Goku, he never really changes that much. He helps other people change, really. And he's just entertaining and a constant source of humor, but also some pretty good drama here and there. Or he's just a really nice guy. I mean, he saves Android 18 because he's in love with her, but he also saves 17 too. He says that, imagine if you had to walk around with a bomb inside of you. Wouldn't that be pretty awful? He cares about these people. He doesn't want the androids to remain as deadly robots with bombs inside them for the rest of their lives. Oh, and both of his death scenes work really well. Then there's the spectacle of Dragon Ball, the part that most people probably read it and watch it for anyway, which the Super Saiyan 3 transformation had to include that. That is just amazing. The one problem I have with Kai's Super Saiyan 3 transformation is that they changed, I'm not super mad they changed the line from, and this is to go even further beyond, but the line they replaced it with is pretty bad. It's, and this next level goes way beyond Super Saiyan 2. That's too much, that's too long. It should have been something like, and this next level goes way beyond that. Or this next level goes way beyond. Yeah, that would have been pretty good. Oh, and even though King Kai's reaction was in the manga, they cut it out, but whatever. That's just a really good scene. And I like how he says it earlier in the manga, or in Kai, he says to Piccolo that I couldn't have beaten Buu, no matter how hard I tried Super Saiyan 3. But yeah, that's what he says in the manga. And then later on, he says, you know, I could have beaten that fat Buu, but I wanted to let Trunks and Goten beat him themselves to see if they were really powerful enough. But no, in Kai, he just says to Piccolo early on, yeah, I could have beaten Buu. Or no, in the manga originally he says, no, I couldn't have beaten Buu. And then he says at the end, which my words have probably gotten super mixed up now, but whatever. There's a Gohan fighting Cell. I just love this image of him punching him. I mean, you can see a lot of these panels that Toriyama made excellent use of speed lines. It made everything look really fast and dynamic. I mean, I like Toyotaro's artwork, especially starting with the Granola Saga, but it's night and day from Toriyama. I mean, just look at this. They've copied this stuff later on multiple times, like a shot of Goku punching Piccolo in the gut. That looks really cool. Or Goku and Vegeta's rematch in the Buu Saga, which only lasts a few pages in the it's really more of a conversation than a fight, which is yeah one of the few things the anime did better is that not only was the fight longer, but they added even more great dramatic moments to it. Still, this is just such a great scene. You can really get a sense of everything. That's how tense everything is. Then there's also the emotional core of Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball, if it were just the action, sure, it would have been cool, but it wouldn't really have meant anything. And yeah, I already mentioned Vegeta's death on Namek, which I think is the best death scene in Dragon Ball. Or there's also Piccolo's sacrifice, which if you just started with the Saiyan saga, you're not really gonna care. You'll think. I remember Totally Not Mark mentioned this once. If you started with Z like many people did, you would just say, okay, this is Piccolo. We're told he's bad. Then we see him become good. But we never really see him do anything horrible. I mean, he kidnaps Gohan, but that's so we can train him to fight the Saiyans. So, yeah, that doesn't. But if you read the original story and see him as this horrible, evil demon, and then you see him do this, it really hits way harder. And regardless, it still hits really hard. And there's the future of Dragon Ball, so, yeah, the Granola Saga finished up in the manga, in the US, at least in volumes anyway, which is how I read it. I think at the beginning of this year, at the end of last year, I mean, about a few months ago, the last volume came out, which sadly they're doing an adaptation of the superhero movie, which is a waste of time. I want to get to that Black Frieza story. I mean, they did add some extra stuff in the beginning, but I don't care about the high school exploits of Goten and Trunks. I mean, they didn't do an adaptation of the Broly movie, but all that aside, I think the Super manga is going really well. The Granola Saga was fantastic, I'd say, and was even able to measure up to some of Z, which really impressed me. But of course, there's, Toriyama. Akira Toriyama passed away a few months ago, which that was really shocking and sad. I mean, I didn't have quite the reaction other people do, but just really sad. I remember I saw Sean Schemmel's reaction. He said that he said, think about the people in Japan too. They lost a national treasure. But he did leave us with a lot of great stories, and he did have somewhat of an influence on the Super manga, so without him it's definitely going to be different, but here's to hoping that even without him things will still be good, and he left behind a really impressive legacy that we can't forget. So, that was what I considered the art of Dragon Ball, the art of engaging your audience. Because of all four of, well, yeah, I suppose all four of these parts really engage people. And I think it's really impressive that really one man was able to do all of this. So, comment down below what you thought of this video. That's all for now. And as always, keep on juicing.